And very pleased now to be joined by Assistant General Manager and Senior Advisor to the President of Football Operations. That's Ed Hervey. And Ed, you have gone through this a few times as a player, as somebody in the front office, as a GM. But I mean, free agency is always really a special time to kind of kick off a new season.
Yeah, it's obviously there's opportunities to evaluate your team. First and foremost, keep the players that you feel can help you moving forward. And then there's always going to be change. Players are going to explore options elsewhere. And when those players do, it gives you an opportunity to see what's out there as far as other players that can fill a role on the football team, and with the hopes of obviously improving. That's first and foremost, but it's not necessarily a mechanism to, build your team through. But we've seen in the CFL, you can make turnarounds through free agency just with the experience that's out there. And there's a lot of great players to choose from.
What does a typical pitch look like? What if you have a player on your list that you want? Take us through, kind of the opening tampering period to the pen to paper. What goes into that?
First, I don't like to refer to it as a tampering period. I like to refer to it as communication week, right?
Okay.
Opportunity for us to communicate with the players. Going back to the theory behind it is there's a lot of money invested, right, in players. You wouldn't invest the kind of money into a house if you hadn't had a chance to see it. You wouldn't invest in the stock if you hadn't had a chance to be, have a chance to review it. See the same way with the players, right? We have an opportunity during that week to speak to the players, get to know the players, have our coaches speak to the players, ensuring that there's a fit. I think that's the most important, and I think that's where the advantages of the communication week play a big role in, the process of signing players. Whereas before, it was, hey, this guy looks good on film. Free agency opened up. It was a bidding war, and then when you got the player into the building, not in many cases, but in the rare occasion, it was like, wow, this guy doesn't fit. He doesn't fit with the culture, all those different things. So this gives us an opportunity to do that. And to answer your question as far as how does that necessarily go, I mean, we reach out to the player and talk to them, get an idea of who they are, and kind of just get a little bit of an idea of what their expectations are through free agency, where they're really looking to move, or they see what their value is, all those different components. And then our next step for us is to have them speak to their position coach, speak to different members of the coaching staff, or whatever side of the ball they're on, and then ultimately have the opportunity to speak to the head coach and president of football ops, Orlando Steinauer. So from there, if we have a good feel and there's a good feel mutually for both sides, then we feel good making the offer, and we know that the player, whoever that is or whoever those players are, going into the process of the actual free agency period, when it gets to that point, they feel good about making a decision to come here, because we're selling, a vision of, obviously family, a vision of, cohesiveness, and then just the environment itself, which is pretty well known throughout the league, how Orlando and Hamilton Ticats have always operated. So it's not really a tough sale. It's just more so just getting to know the players and them getting to know us throughout that process.
You mentioned the culture, you mentioned getting them in the building, and no disrespect to the facilities at the Brick Field or at BC Place, but I mean, when I've talked to guys who have signed in Hamilton, they talk about going through the tour and getting the tour of the locker room. It's one thing to be in opposition here, but getting to tour the Ticats facilities, we've talked about it on this show before throughout the season. They're world-class facilities, but just how much does that play into, the workout room, the locker room? How much of a sell is that for guys when they do come through the building?
Well, I think it's extremely important. It's a very impressive facility, I might add. Each player, everyone wants the professional experience of playing professional football. And it's professional is not limited to just being paid and putting on a uniform. There's other components to that, how they're coached, how they're treated, the facilities when they're off the field, the amenities that they have that surround them that allow them to feel comfortable in their time here. And you hope that with that, in addition to a positive culture, that you gain longevity of those players. Those players want to stick around, they want to play. And even if they move on for other reasons, the reputation follows, right? And they're messengers of the amenities and messengers of the environment. And they tell the players that are out there that are, when Hamilton is mentioned, they put all the positives that come with it. So it's clear. You walk through this place. I mean, I got the tour earlier this week, and it's extremely impressive here. Obviously, I'm looking forward to actually seeing it more and more as the days go by, and having a chance to really, just get a feel for what's going on here, because there's a lot to take in. But for a player seeing for the first time, obviously it's impressive.
Well said. Let's talk about some of the guys you picked up. There were a lot of guys who came back ahead of free agency, and we'll touch on them in a second. But Micah Johnson would have been at the top of just about every team in the CFL. Everybody wants a Micah Johnson. How did you land him? And what kind of impact are you hoping he has on that D-line?
I think with Micah, I mean, obviously his reputation speaks for itself. His time in this league and the kind of player he has been throughout. And we feel that teaming him up with Dylan Wynn and Teddy up front, we just think that gives us, a formidable front that can control the line of scrimmage. We know that part of winning football at this level is you have to be able to be dominant up front. You have to control the line of scrimmage, and Micah brings that in addition to the guys that we have returning. He's always been firm. He's always been active, and whenever plays are made when he's on the field, he's there. So he's still, we feel, is a player that you have to locate and teams have to make accountable for. And again, we just feel that he's not coming to have to do it all by himself, but bring what he has to the table. And then we believe that it's going to obviously open up Dylan even more to have, he's always had a great career. We think he's going to excel with this combination.
And J.R. Teve, I want to get your thoughts on him. Ticats fans would be familiar with him from his time with the Red Blacks, but he's joining a DB's room that's full of talent, and a lot of guys are ready to make an impact. What do you see from him bringing to this Ticats group?
I think, again, he's another D lineman that, obviously has ability. Yeah, he's a D lineman that has a lot of ability to get to the passer. I think last year he was battling a slight injury that he sustained early in camp, and I know that what was seen in film of him last year wasn't a true indication of what he brings to the table. He's definitely versatile in the sense that he can play the outside. You can kind of move him down on the inside. He's strong and powerful to be able to do some things in there. He's not afraid to go in there. He mix it up with old linemen in the interior. He can play special teams. He's very versatile in that respect. There's times you can line him up. He can play second level, drop. He's a very good athlete, and there's a lot of components to his game that we think can help our defense. And then obviously teaming him up with Coach Randy Melvin, I think that his brighter days are ahead of him as well.
My chicken scratch writing here has got DBs, DLs all mixed up there, but
okay.
Let's talk about the DBs, because as mentioned, they're, you bring in a Richard Leonard, you bring in guys, Alden Darby, Carriel Brooks resigned, Tunde resigned. There's going to be a lot of competition. We were just talking about this with Spencer, and how do you see that kind of shaking out, or how do you push them to really compete for those few spots on the field?
I think that's what's the beauty of the situation that we're going into. Obviously, an experienced secondary is critical in the CFL also, right? It's sometimes can be understated, but you have this particular group with the experience that they have and, knowledge of the game and knowledge of each other, more importantly, understanding of the philosophy and the scheme in which they're playing. I think that's going to play a big role in the successes that we have. And as far as competition is concerned, competition only makes everyone better, right? It increases, and we have a good group of guys. And again, guys that I've seen from afar, and obviously in our personnel meetings, getting a chance to hear the staff talk about these individuals as people, There's no question that our fans are going to be in store for not only great competition amongst the secondary, but also a cohesive group that from day one, when they hit the field, just a firm understanding of what their responsibilities and expectations are. And we expect that to give us an advantage going into training camp and going into the season.
And certainly, last but certainly not least, I want to get your thoughts on Black History Month. Throughout the month, we at the Ticats have been highlighting some of the names, and Bernie Custis, and even Orlando Steinauer, and a man like yourself who has kind of risen through the ranks of the Canadian Football League. What does it mean to you to celebrate Black History Month, and what can we be doing as a fan base to learn more?
I mean, for myself, I'm very proud of the fact that we do recognize it and talk about it and bring up those great names as you mentioned. I think more importantly, just continuing to educate ourselves, right, and not be ashamed and not be fearful of knowledge gained and knowledge to be learned of other cultures, right. I think that's important for all of us, right, is to learn and understand and be open-minded to that. Obviously, you mentioned the CFL has always proven to be an open-minded league, going back to the customers and going to Warren Moon and myself and Orlando and things. And, that's what one of the things I appreciate most about the CFL is that we're judged on our merit and the experiences that we do and, what we bring to the table. And, we just happen to be, Black. But more importantly, we're accepted as people. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is just understanding that we're all people, we're all in this together, and we all have a common good in ourselves to be, good citizens. And if we work together in those, aspects of life, then it shouldn't matter what color we are, what our backgrounds are. If we're accepting of people, then what we have is an opportunity for all of us to stick together, work together, and make the world, a better place, make our society a better place, and in our time together, a better time, because I think that's really what it comes down to. And we're fortunate to have professional sport, or the game of football in general that brings us together. And but we have to recognize that the platform is there for us to be positive, create awareness, but more importantly, walk the walk and talk the talk, and vice versa, and making sure that we're all in this as one. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? Like, we're having this conversation here, and I can speak openly about it and feel good that we're in discussion. But learning each other's cultures are extremely important if we truly want to understand and make changes in society. It's all about recognizing and understanding the person that's standing in front of us.
Well said. Ed, it's always great to connect with you. I'm always a little bit smarter after we chat. So thanks so much for doing this.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Always looking forward to seeing you.